Welcome to 558 Parkside Tech, where we talk about tech's past, present, and future. Our goal is to educate the culture. I am your tech plug, Mike. Today is a series on C# and inheritance. As always, we strive for progress, not perfection. So let's get started after this.
558 Parkside Tech in effect. 558 Parkside Tech in effect. 558 Parkside Tech in effect.
Before we start coding C#, let's do a little review. In my previous discussions, I spoke about UML diagrams, which the purpose of the UML diagram is to kind of outline some of your ideas on paper, your classes, your methods, and maybe even putting in some of your variables so that maybe a senior developer can take a look at it, or just one of your friends to see what you're thinking about building before you start writing code and having to move things around. I also spoke about CRUD, C-R-U-D, and I kind of outlined and made a bold statement that pretty much you're only going to write 4 programs in tech. Yeah, pretty much. Also, I spoke about object-oriented programming, which some call it OOPS or OOP, which is a little weird, but you'll hear it that way as well. And I outlined the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming, being abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. And I said if you can't remember all those words, just remember API. A-P-I-E, and make out the words from there. As always, any language, whether it be English or any language that you speak, or even computer languages, have what we call syntax. That's just sentence structure, how things are laid out.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And in C#, some of the most important things are your brackets, your semicolons, and your parentheses. It's important you get your arm around that. Most developers have a problem. I remember when I first started coding, I missed out on a lot of semicolons because I came from a language that used periods and other denotations.
Period.
So keep those in mind as you're writing C#, and we'll touch upon that as we start writing code. Now, what are we going to build? For this lesson, we're going to be building a class or an object. We use those terms interchangeably. And we're going to be doing what we call a master bedroom object. I figured that would be easy for you to do because everybody has a bedroom and they have things in their bedroom. In this case, I'm calling those things variables. And also, each thing in your bedroom does something. Your bed is for sleeping, if you have dressers for putting in clothes. So I think you'll get a better understanding of what methods are. So we're going to be doing a master bedroom. Also, we're going to be doing a child's bedroom. So the master bedroom we're going to call the parent object. And the child bedroom or the daughter's bedroom, we're going to call in this case a derived class. Because in order for it to be a derived class, it derived from something. And as I outlined in the object-oriented programming discussion, I outlined that whenever you have a master class and you derive from it, you inherit it from it, you get everything that the master has, or the master class, or in this case, the parent class has. The example I've outlined here is that we have a master bedroom object. Remember, everything we point to, we're going to call it an object. So the master bedroom object has in it a bed with blue sheets, a nightstand that's blue, a dresser that's blue, and a PlayStation. The guest bedroom is going to inherit from the master bedroom. So what does it end up having? The exact same thing. It's inheritance. So it's going to end up with a bed with blue sheets, a nightstand that's blue, and a dresser that's blue, and of course, it's going to inherit the PlayStation. So inheritance seems to be straightforward and clear. And here I'm outlining, as you'll see when we start writing code, that a colon is how we denote inheritance. So in this case, the daughter would inherit from the mom. Looks like it's written backwards, but that's how it works. The mom is being inherited by the daughter in this case. Also, I want to outline one more thing before we move into code. That is, when you open up Visual Studio, which we'll be using today, you'll see solutions and projects. And I want to outline here that you could have multiple projects within one solution, or you could have a solution with one project. In our case, we're going to be doing a solution with one console project. Also, when you open up Visual Studio and it's time to select what we're going to be doing a console application. So as you can see here, you're going to be putting in console, and we're doing C#. Then you're going to hit next. Now, when you hit next, you're going to be asking you for a project name. You can call it whatever you want to call it, as well as location. Location, it's where it's going to be stored on your computer. So in case you need to go to the actual location versus opening up Visual Studio to find it, this is the location you would go to. The solution is just saying it's a new solution. Now, the solution name, if you don't fill out the solution name in this case, the solution name will be the same as the project name. And down you'll see the word framework. I'm not going to get into kind of explaining framework today. I will in another lesson. But just take note of the framework that you're actually using. Here we're using 4.7.2. Afterwards, hit create. I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and we'll be right back.
Missing data.
Yeah, that's mine.
So now when you open Visual Studio and you've created your console application, it's probably going to come up like this, where your solution, which we have here, and your project are pretty much named the same. Now, let's just take a look around before we start writing code, because when you first jump into this, it looks a little crazy, I'm sure, especially if you're brand new. So, first of all, Visual Studio is an editor, okay, where we're writing code. Some people call it an IDE, an interactive development environment, okay? So here what you'll see is a namespace called console house example. This is where all your code is contained. It's kind of contained in a box and a space called console house example. Anything outside of that space would have to try to reference it, all right? So you have a namespace and console house example. You also have a thing called class program, which is kind of default when you first open up, where all the magic kind of happens, and I'll show you in a minute.
Perfect.
So now what we need to do, and I've kind of made some comments at the bottom if I scroll down, and I've commented out, but we'll get into that in a second. So now what we need to do, as we outlined in the UML diagram, and let me just make a side note. Most people don't do UML diagrams. We're in a world that everything is fast-paced. We just jump in, start writing code, and kind of it's jacked up. We just keep fixing it from that point. We don't tend to take our time and write UML diagrams and have walkthroughs.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
If you're old school, you're used to walkthroughs if you did COBOL. If you did COBOL, they had COBOL walkthroughs with junior developers or junior programmers. They don't do as much of that, but if they do it, it's after the fact that we do a walkthrough. You have code reviewers, but that's after the fact. So let me stick to this. So here now we need to create what we call a master bedroom class, because I was saying that mom has a master bedroom class and the daughter is going to inherit from that. So let's build that. So the first thing we need to do here is create a master bedroom class. So we're going to say class master bedroom mom class, and we're going to have to put our parentheses because we're going to put work within this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create some variables. Now, some variables that we looked at on the UML diagram were things like the color of the room, the bed size, the nightstand, that there's a television in this room, right? So let's do that. So let's put a public string color room. So we're saying the color of the room, and we're going to say that it's white. All right, pretty basic. Mom's old school. She likes white, right?
That was easy.
So here we're going to put another variable for bed size. All right, and we're going to say mom has a king size bed. All right. We're also going to create another variable that we had in the UML diagram, and we're going to call it, I think it's, we said there was a nightstand. Most people have nightstands. So we're just going to say nightstands equals, I can't type, glass. Okay. So her nightstand's a glass. And remember, with syntax, everything has a semicolon at the end. When I first started writing code, I didn't put semicolons. In another language, I didn't put periods. Things did not go well. So remember to do that, okay? So I have one more. I think we had in the UML diagram, we had television inside that bedroom. And it was, I'm going to say Sony, okay? So now we have all our variables, right? But these variables don't do anything. We're just saying that this class has these variables in it. In order for it to do something or to have action, if you Google anything about object-oriented programming, we have to have a method, all right? And how we denote methods is this way. I'm playing public, void, and our method's going to be style. Okay? We're going to have a style method. Now, let me hold 1 second. What I want to say about this, let me give parentheses. Okay? What I want to say about this is that if you look at the word void and you see these two parens on the end, what happens is within a method you can pass things in a method. So if you could think of a class like a door or a room that has a door, these parentheses would be a door, and if I wanted to bring something into that room or into that class, I would pass it into this parentheses, but then it would no longer be void. But in this case, I'm not passing anything into the method. So we say public void method, and we have nothing being passed in it. All right. And in this case, all I want to do within this method is write something to the console. So I'm going to put console dot write line is a method within console class. So I'm going to say do this. I want to write something to the console. And I'm going to write master bedroom is for mom. And that's all I'm going to write. Okay, I'm going to write that. And maybe I'll write one more message out to the console. I'll write console dot write line. There are shortcuts to this, but I'm making you write the long way to get used to writing it.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
I'm going to say here, I'm going to say that the master television watch. All right, so that's all I'm going to do in this method is kind of write two messages, okay, to the console. All right, so a couple things I want you to take note of before we move forward. We just created a class, all right? Now, within that class, we have variables, okay? And we said that they're string, meaning they're characters that are being passed in. We also created a method, and we said that the word void means we're not passing anything into that method, okay? And within that actions or in that method, I'm just writing out two console messages, okay? And whenever you see the console dot, I'm referring to a method within that class. So there is a console class, okay? And then there's a method. Now, what I want you to take note of, that I remember when someone was teaching me years ago about this, they didn't share this with me. When I highlight console, you see the little squiggly little multi-box yellow thing? That denotes that it's a class. And it even says class system.console, all right? And then when I hover over the right line, it's in a box because that's denoting that it's a method. Okay, and I won't get into overloads and all that right now. That's for another conversation, but I want you to understand that whenever you see a dot, we're referencing a method within this class because this class could have multiple methods. In our case, this class called Master Bedroom Mom class only has one method. That method's called style. Now, let's move on to creating the other class that we talked about in our UML diagram, and that's a daughter class. All right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that right here. Let's create a public daughter daughter. Okay. Some parentheses. All right. Now within the daughter class, let's scroll down. Let's create a couple of variables. Within the daughter class, we're going to have public string, and we're going to give, in this particular class or in this bedroom of the daughter, we're going to create a gaming system. So we're going to say game system equals, what kind of gaming system should we give her? Let's give her a PlayStation. All right, that's what I like to play with, so let's get that in there.
Oh shit, here we go again.
All right, and let's use semicolon because we know every language has a syntax, so we're going to put that in there. And let's do one more. All right, let's give her a computer. Mom's old school. Mom doesn't really have a computer. If she does, she doesn't really know how to work it, but we won't get into that. So let's go ahead and put in this case, let's say she has an Apple computer. So those are the only two things we're going to say is within the daughter class. All right, so let me scroll up further up. So here we got a master. And I'm not going to put public because that's the default. I want you to get used to that. So let me just put that in there so it's a default. And I kind of gave away the secret on that one.
That one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it.
But let's say class. We have a class, daughter. It's a public stream. And it has a game system. And we have another variable. It's a public string. It's a computer. And it's an Apple. So now we have two classes. All right? But now how do we get, because we're talking about object-oriented programming, and in this course we're talking about inheritance, how do we get the daughter class to inherit from the master bedroom mom class? The way we denote that is with the colon. And then we put in the master bedroom class. So now as you can see, remember I showed you that the yellow little boxy thing says that it's a class. This class is being inherited by this class. So now everything that's in the master bedroom mom class is now inside the daughter class. So what do I mean? So everything you see here, this color room being white, the bedroom, the nightstand, the television is now being inherited by this daughter class. Okay, so it just doesn't have just the gaming system and the computer. It also has all the variables that are here. Why is this important? Why does this even matter? This matters is because this is why we call it object-oriented programming. We created a class called Master Bedroom Mom, and that class is an object. Okay? We also created a class called Daughter. But instead of rewriting or recreating the same exact items or variables that are here, we just inherited that object. And that's really the purpose of object-oriented programming, is to keep from writing redundant code. I don't have to write this code over again. That does the color room, the bed size, the nightstand, the television. I don't have to do that. I can write it in one class and inherit it in another class. So now that I have it here, let's now write some code for the two of them to interact. Let's actually pull them together. So how we're going to do that is within this class called program, which is where the application actually starts. It'll start right here. We're saying static void main. So there is a method. You can see the purple box. There's a method here called main. It's void, means nothing's being passed in. Nothing's being passed in at all. So within this, since it starts here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to write some code. So we're going to put daughter and we're going to put another daughter variable, and we're going to say equal and when I write this, I'll explain it once I finish. So after we do that, we're going to go ahead and say my daughter dot style. So what am I saying here? I'm saying here that I want to take this daughter, okay, and I want to create a new my daughter. I don't have to call it my daughter. Make it. It seems like it's making it confusing. I'm going to call it. What could be a better word? I'm going to call it thing. All right. Thing. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking the daughter method, all right, that we have above, and I'm going to create my thing, and I'm going to, in this instance, use dot style. Why can I use dot style? I'm creating this new variable, local variable here, but what am I trying to do with my style? See, my style got inherited from the master bedroom mom because here I inherited from it. I inherited everything in the master bedroom mom into the daughter class. So I can use style here. So I'm creating a new, taking this method and creating a new local method or local variable here called my thing dot style. So everything should be there. And what I've done previously is I commented out some code. So let me go back and make a comment on commenting out code. Whenever you write code, like let's say you wrote this and you were in a class or something and you wanted to make a note about this. You can put a slash here and you can write a comment. And you can write a comment. This is a variable. All right?
Good job.
I can scroll down here and I can write another comment as well. This is an example of inheritance. All right? So here I've done the same here. I had some right console lines here. I'm going to uncomment them out so that we can actually see what happens here. And I'll explain what I'm doing after I finish this. All right. And I'm going to change this to, I used to thing. There's a way to globally do this, but I want you to see it manually done so you get in the habit of doing it. So when I show you the shortcuts later, you know both. So let me go back in here and change it to thing. Okay. Now, it's screaming about something. You see the little squiggly lines underneath here? If you look here, it starts showing you the errors at the bottom, right? The reason why it's doing that, if I scroll back up, this is important to share with you. C#, like other object-oriented language, are case sensitive. See, I have the word television here with the small t, but if I go down here, I have it with the big T. So I have to make it a small t for it to identify it. Game system. If I go up here, I call it game system, and the S is small. So it failed down here because the S is big. So if I change this to a smaller s, it's happy down here because it says there's no more errors. All right?
Nice.
So now, let me explain what I've done with this right console line because there was a lot to write out, so I did it in advance. I'm trying to show you that when I use the inheritance here of the master bedroom mom, and made sure the daughter was able to inherit it. I also showed you that the daughter already previously had game system and a computer. Those are the only two things she had in her room, right? But by inheriting the master bedroom mom class, she now has all these different things. And so here I'm writing out what this particular class has by creating a new variable. So I'm saying daughter, which only originally had two variables, I'm taking everything in daughter, which now has more than two variables. It has all the variables from the mom class, and I'm throwing it into my thing. And I'm using the method called style, okay? Which is, if you go back up here, what does style do? Style just does two things. It just does two right console lines. It says master bedroom is mom, and it also says master television is large. So I'm actually going to execute this method here. And that way we'll be able to then, when I write out this console, these console lines, you'll also see the console lines from style. I hope that makes sense to you. I'm kind of throwing a lot at you at once. And I'm also reading it, so asking the console to stop so I can read everything that I just wrote out. And that's where this read line comes in. All right? So now let's see what happens when we run this. So after we finish something like this, we have to do a build. A build is like a compile. You have to understand that computers do not understand words like this. These are English words that we're actually writing. It doesn't understand. It doesn't understand daughter. It doesn't understand my thing. We have to do a build to change this words that we're seeing into computer code. All right? So we have to do a build so that we can get the computer code to be created. So we go up here and we say build solution. And if you look down here, it's actually building the solution. I will just scroll up. You can see it's doing a build. It didn't find any errors. It says it succeeded down here. 1 succeeded, 0 failed, 0 updated, 0 skipped. So it's been built. Okay? Now, let's see what happens if we run it. All right? And now, no cap.
My name is Sophia, and I am the latest and greatest robot from Hanson Robotics. Thank you for having me here and at the Future Investment Initiative.
So now, once we hit the start button up here to actually run the application, this is what happens. We now have displayed to the console, when we wrote console write line, remember, in the master bedroom class, we said master bedroom is for mom, master television is large. Now inside the daughter class, remember we created a variable called my thing. It shows that the daughter class now has the exact same thing that the master class, the master mom bedroom class had. It has white as the color, it has a Sony television, and it still has the PlayStation and Apple because that was what was originally in the daughter class. So we can see the inheritance in action. And that is the whole purpose of doing a right console line that we see here. Well, let's do a quick review. Today we were able to complete a console application in C# as well as learn a little bit about Visual Studio. Also, we learned that a solution can have multiple projects or one project. And you were able to write an application with inheritance, which the whole purpose of that is to keep from writing redundant code because you can inherit from one class to another class. And you also learned the importance of syntax and how it's case sensitive, and it's important to keep your eye on your punctuations as well. And as a side note, remember, an object is an instance of a class. Well, thank you for joining me today. And if you learned anything from this lesson or this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe. As you know, Big Brother's always watching. And be better than your best excuse and learn tech. And as my nephew always says, program or be programmed. Well, that's all I got today. Peace.
Yeah, 558 Parkside Tech in effect, 558 Parkside Tech in effect, tap in the future. Let me introduce you. 558 Parkside Tech, about to school ya. 558 Parkside Tech in effect, 558 Parkside Tech in effect, 558 Parkside Tech in effect, Park, son.